For this project, I chose the Civil Rights era. During these years, America saw everything from the historic Civil Rights movement to the Beatles and fruit-striped gum. I enjoyed researching this era and reading my books. I collected my artifacts around the year 1964 because that was when my novel was set. That was also the year that Dr. King won the Nobel Peace Prize and segregation was outlawed. So first, here are the books that I think would be great for students. My first book is Martin's Big Words, that describes the life of Martin Luther King Jr. During this book, the author uses her words and Martin's words to create this story, and it is my nonfiction book. My third book is Through My Eyes, an autobiography of Ruby Bridges. Ruby was the first African American to attend a public white school in New Orleans. She tells about that experience and the rest of her life through this book. The historical picture book I chose was Sit-In, How Four Friends Stood Up by Sitting Down, and it tells the story of the sit-in started by 4 African American college students at a white-only lunch counter in North Carolina as they sat for their rights. Lastly, my favorite book, Yankee Girl. This historical fiction novel was about a young girl, Alice, who moved from Chicago to Memphis during 1964. It described the South at that time and told of the struggles Alice faced. My first artifact would be to show the children a list of popular music from the time.
Can't buy me love, love, can't buy me love.
Baby, where did our love go? Oh, don't you want me, baby? Don't you want me no more?
My next artifact would be to show students a list of popular movies from that time. Some of these movies would include Mary Poppins, The Parent Trap, and Batman.
I was afraid to speak when I was just a lad. My father gave me nails a tweak, told me I was bad. But then one day I learned a word to save me aching nose.
The biggest word you ever heard, and this is how it goes. Oh, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious, if you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
My third artifact would be a list of cost of living prices in 1964. Some of the things I would include on that list would be the price for a movie ticket, which was $1.25. Milk was $1.06 per gallon. Eggs were 34 cents per dozen. Some other things that I might include would be postage stamps, which was 5 cents because at this time a lot of kids collected stamps. Another thing I could put on there is like the price of gasoline, which was 30 cents per gallon. The price of a new car in '64 was $3,495. Some popular candies at that time were Red Hots, Zots, Sugar Daddies, wax bottles, lemon heads, fruit striped gum, which they talk a lot about in the Yankee Girl book. My next artifact is this Remember When book from 1964, and inside contains some like important news headlines along with advertisements from the time. And so I would show that to students so they could see what the different advertisements were like and some of like the car from that time period and just different things like that. My next group of artifacts is toys from the 60s. And here I have the bendable Gumby, which was came popular in 1964. Gumby's been around longer, but the actual toy came out at that time. I also have the 15 game, which requires you to move the squares around to solve the puzzle. And I have Tinker Toys, which were popular at that time. In the year 1964, other board games such as like Twister and Clue and Monopoly were also all very popular. These artifacts here are from my grandma, and this is the local yearbook from our local high school from that time period. So I would definitely show this to students so they could see some of the dress of that time from our area and like the different people from our local high school. I also have a couple of her personal photographs to show them at that time. For my last artifact, I decided to include part of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous I Have a Dream speech. For my other artifacts, they were all current to the time, but even when people were listening to the Beatles,
While they chewed their fruit-striped gum, there was something much bigger going on. All my books made reference to Dr. King, and I want the students to see real video footage of that speech. I think my combination of artifacts and books show the students what our country was like during the Civil Rights era. And thank you for watching my presentation. Here's the video.
50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
I'll open my mouth to the Lord, and I won't turn back. I will go, I shall go, to see what the end's gonna be.
Whoa, who's that yonder dressed in red?
This nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Shall go,
I will
go,
I shall
just to see
what the end's gonna be.
In the morning,
To see what the end's gonna be.
in the evening,
To see what the end's gonna be.
Midnight hour.